Hey guys, week 39 is it already? I have a bunch of reviews for you, pick a movie, whatnot, couple guest reviews. One actually is the pick a movie, so I'm going to hop right in this. The first one I'll be reviewing for you guys is a double feature of the Gruesome, Twosome, and A Taste of Blood, both by Herschel Gordon Lewis. You guys know how I feel about Herschel Gordon Lewis. I've seen Blood Feast and Scum of the Earth, and I'm not the biggest fan of Herschel Gordon Lewis. Saying that, I put these in, and I was a little excited. You know, he's a master of horror. Everybody, you know, respects him, and I respect him as well. I understand what he's done for the horror genre, what he's done for the splatter film, and he was innovative as hell. Let me say this now. Gruesome, Twosome, this is the first one I watched. It was 67. This is objectively a bad movie. Like, if somebody's like, I really like it, usually movies to me are subjectively, like, it's good or it's bad. I'm like, Gruesome, Twosome's bad. To me, it's objectively bad. Like, somebody walked in when I was watching it, and I'm like, this is bad, man. First of all, it's like a 50-minute movie that has like 20 minutes pad time. It's super boring. The print looks really rough, but I understand that 67 low-budget movie. That's perfectly fine. We follow this woman who is overacting and probably the best part of the movie, and her deformed, kind of mentally handicapped son. They run a wig shop. They basically used real human hair. Maybe it was a precursor to Maniac. I don't know. But the concept there is actually fun to a pair, you know, the Gruesome Twosome, a mother and a son killer. They basically kill pretty girls and take their hair. There's some really awkward, bizarre moments where, like, all the people are hanging out, eating Kentucky Fried Chicken, and through the commentary you learn that they basically paid for the catering in the movie, which is hilarious. There's a girl dancing with the chicken. Best part, one of the best parts of the movie. There is a 10-minute scene in the opening where these two mannequin heads talk that he basically, Gordon Lewis talks about, this is pad time because we did not have enough for a 71-minute movie. There is a 10-minute scene where a guy takes a leg, a bone, it appears, and walks and buries it in a garden, and someone watches him. It's 10 minutes. It's boring. It's horrible. Most of the acting is dreadful. It's painful. It's drug out. Everything's drug out. It's super boring. It's super sloppy. And what I want to say is, I hate saying this, but Herschel Gordon Lewis made an art out of making a movie and getting it done on the lowest budgets possible. But there is no, just because there's an art in making a super low budget movie and completing it doesn't mean that it makes art. And he wasn't in it for the art, I don't think, especially for the Gruesome Twosome. He was in it to make money. He was in it to complete the movie. And he was super innovative, and he was progressive in his cinema, that he pushed boundaries and stuff. But it doesn't mean it's good. And I'm sorry to say that. It doesn't mean it's good. He opened the door, and somebody came in who had talent and did it better than him. For Gruesome Twosome, at least. The gore in here actually is fairly good. There's a couple nasty moments with a scalping and one with somebody's eye that gets gouged out. Looks really gross, to be honest. And it's funny, the scalping, they get the whole thing off on the head, and then it's like 5 minutes of footage of it just like the bottom still getting cut off. It's like it took 10 seconds to cut the whole head off, but you're going to spend 5 minutes cutting the bottom off. It's such an obvious, like, pad time. And I like the commentary. I like the features on here with interviews and stuff with other filmmakers that love Herschel Gordon Lewis's work, and how they talk about how he inspired them. And the commentaries are always great. This is an old commentary. He talks about, you know, how he did it and how the film industry was there. I enjoy it. He's a smart guy. He's like... Herschel Gordon Lewis is like a mixer of like highly intelligent, but also like people have been telling him he's like the greatest director ever for so long, and he passed away now. But it seems like in these commentaries that like he comes in and like at points he's like making fun of Keanu Reeves and everything like that, and you're just like, this guy used real actors, not like people like Keanu Reeves. You're like, what are you talking about? Keanu Reeves is better than any of these actors. Besides, who's the one guy who pops up in A Taste of Blood? I won't say, but it's just so weird, so bizarre. And I just can't recommend Gruesome Twosome. The Taste of Blood, on the other hand, is much better. And it runs about 2 hours, which is super long for a Herschel Gordon Lewis movie. This is a Dracula story. Actually, a really fun concept. This guy, he appears to be an ancestor of Count Dracula. He gets this wine in the mail, and he drinks it, and he actually drinks Dracula's blood. He becomes a vampire, and he gets this list of people that killed Dracula, and he has to pick them off. While, you know, his fiance's catching on to him, and the ancestor of Van Helsing knows something's up, so he comes into the picture. One of the actors in here actor is he reminds me of like the love child of Ronald Reagan and Ben Johnson, and he's actually a pretty good actor. He's better than the Herschel Gordon Lewis movie would suggest, and the guy who plays the vampire is not bad either. The acting's much better in this one. The shots are better. The editing's better. Everything about this one is better. It is nearly 2 hours long, and in the commentary again, Herschel Gordon Lewis is talking about, you know, movies nowadays have so much padding. They're just too long, and they're 2 hours long, and it's like, we're talking about a Dracula movie here that's low budget, that's 2 hours long. And, you know, I won't pick on that one because maybe it needed to be 2 hours long. This one doesn't seem to drag. It does drag, but not as bad as Gruesome Twosome, which is 71 minutes long, and it drags like hell. And he's talking about pad time for a 2-hour movie. Trim this. It's like, that movie needed to be trimmed badly. Do not like Gruesome Twosome. It's horrible. But as A Taste of Blood, like I said, the acting's better, the story's better, everything about it is just a step up, which is kind of strange. It's almost like, is this from the same guy? It's not really that gory. Some of the acting's really shaky, of course, but I kind of enjoyed this one, and it gave me a little better side to Herschel Gordon Lewis. I am excited to watch stuff like Wizard of Gore and Color Me Blood Red, 2000 Maniacs, because those seem like I will actually enjoy them, and the Gore Girls, those ones, and eventually I'm going to see them. But so far, Herschel Gordon Lewis, not really into his movies. I've seen 4 so far, and I'm going to keep watching all his movies, and I respect the hell out of him for what he did for the genre and for what he did for film, but I don't like his films. This release, I said a lot of the prints are beat up. Taste of Blood looks much better. Gruesome Twosome looks like it's been through hell. We got the green lines and everything. But it's Arrow, so usually if Arrow says it's the best they did, I'm going to believe them because I've never really been disappointed with Arrow. Maybe with their like Tenebrae original release, I didn't think looked very good. But since then, I've been impressed with almost everything they've done. The special features on here, they have interviews with a couple filmmakers. They talk about you know, how he inspired them. I really liked hearing those. The commentaries are great. David Freeman actually walks in during one of them. It's a nice release of a movies that I don't particularly care for.
The only reason for my appearance is to suggest that if you're the least bit squeamish, well, you cover your eyes or turn around in your seat for the next 90 seconds. The same writer and the same director who brought you Blood Feast, which is already a classic of horror and shown at many film festivals, have produced a new film which reaches the heights of nightmarish horror, never before even attempted on screen. So please, if you're revolted by the sight of blood, close your eyes for the next 90 seconds. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mrs. Pringle. I want you to meet my son, Rodney. Now, Rodney's not an ordinary youngster that hangs out on street corners. No, indeed. Rodney's a good boy. And this is a little business I have here. I make wigs for the beautiful young girls at the college. These wigs are made of human hair, and you know how human hair is, I mean, after all. And you know, I couldn't really be in business without Rodney's help. He's such a comfort. And Rodney helps. Well, you might say he helps cut the overhead, if you know what I mean. Isn't Rodney precious? And smart, too. Why, I'll bet you can guess what he's doing. Right off the top of your head, as they say. You know, for some reason, people call us the Gruesome Twosome. I can't imagine why. It takes all kinds, I suppose. That's the name of our picture, the Gruesome Twosome. And I really don't know how to describe it to you. It's sort of a comedy, because Rodney has such a divine sense of humor. But then it has its dramatic moments, too. I'd suggest you see this picture from the very beginning. That way you'll know where to laugh. I believe that's all, sir. Isn't he handsome? Don't forget, dear, see the picture now. Bye!
A rare experience in terror awaits you.
A descendant of the dreaded Count Dracula comes to life
and a hideous orgy of murder and blood begins. A taste of blood. The warm, pulsing blood of beautiful women, outraged and killed by this man. I'm able to stop because the blood of the Draculas surges through his veins. A taste of blood. With ghastly scenes that will make even the boldest viewer cringe in horror.
Seldom can it be said of a motion picture that it stands alone, one of a kind. A motion picture that jars you, rocks you, astonishes you beyond the point of endurance. A Taste of Blood is such a motion picture.
See it here, the picture that sets a new standard of terror.
The next one here, I can't believe I'm going in this streak here, is from MVD. It is Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. You know what? As a kid, I loved the cartoon Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. As an adult, I never could even make it through the original Attack of the Killer Tomatoes until now. And I never liked Return of the Killer Tomatoes. I just never cared for the movies. Never saw Killer Tomatoes Strike Back. Never saw Killer Tomatoes Eat France. But I put in Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. I know this movie is vastly important as well. It was satirical. It was done bad on purpose. It predates Airplane with the spoof stuff and all that. And it does so much unique stuff. I just don't like it. I don't think it's funny. It's vastly annoying. It's just too damn stupid. And I like stupid. But I don't really like movies that are bad on purpose. I like movies that are spoofy, like Airplane, because the jokes are clever and it has brilliant actors in it. But Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, for me, it just doesn't really work. It's just not funny, and I understand it's vastly important. Mars Attacks lifted the frickin' ending from the movie, and I respect that they went out and made a movie. I respect that they made this on a budget. I respect that they, were fairly ambitious for how cheap the movie was. But, again, I don't like it. It looks damn good. It sounds good in this release. And it's slew of features on here, commentaries, interviews, all the stuff ported over from the old release, I believe. So it's a nice release, and the guys seem pretty funny on the disc, the filmmakers. It's just not something I particularly like. I loved the cartoon show as a kid, but that's all I can say about The Killer Tomatoes. It's just so stupid and so cheap, and it's spoofing like the 50s Atomic Monster movies, and I get that. It's just that the jokes are so broad and they're not witty, and they're just too stupid and ridiculous. The acting's pretty bad, but it's purposely done bad. There's a couple familiar faces on here. The dad from Chud 2 is in this. He was on a television show as well. I can't remember. It's funny that I know him from Chud 2. Can't think of the big television show he's in there. He almost died in a plane crash in the movie, which is crazy to think that there was a plane crash while making Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. That would suck to have died on this movie, or any movie, but Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. What'd you do? I died doing what I love. Acting. In what? Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. What? But, yeah, the music's vastly memorable. It's just a movie that I know is important, again, like Herschel Gordon Lewis, but it's not for me. And I know a lot of people enjoy it. Like I said, it's loaded with features. I love what it ended up doing in time, and I love the stuff on the disc, but I'm really not a big fan of the movie itself. And the sequels either. But that's Attack of the Killer Tomatoes MVD Rewind Collection. This is the second one, and I like what they're doing. They released the DOA, and they're going to do Return to Swamp Thing. They're going to do some other ones, Black Eagle. So I'm excited for what they have in store, and they're doing great work thus far. It's just Attack of the Killer Tomatoes is not my bag.
Across this great nation, almost everyone has been affected in one way or another by this terrible tomato onslaught. Mrs. Williams, I understand your husband is missing.
Yes,
Do you think he's dead?
Well,
Will you miss him?
Well,
Will you marry again? What if he's laying in a ditch somewhere with both his legs broken, calling your name? You will have to find another man, you know. You're no spring chicken.
Lives are shattered. The nation is in chaos. Death and destruction sweeps the country. Foursquare Productions presents perhaps the funniest film ever made.
Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. You've never seen a film like it. This is the incredible story of the world's ultimate disaster. Vicious man-eating tomatoes grow to monstrous proportions. Faced with this unprecedented menace, the president calls upon Mason Dixon, special agent. aided by his trusty sidekick, Dixon begins to unravel the terrifying mystery of the deadly tomatoes. Dixon is getting close, too close for someone or something. Who could it be? The girl reporter? The ad executive? The press secretary? Or does it go higher? Join Mason Dixon in a race against time as he battles to save the world from the threat of nature's perfect eating machine, the killer tomato.
Ain't no time to make a fuss. We gotta get those tomatoes before they get us.
Attack of the killer tomatoes. You've never seen anything like it.
The next one here is from VCI. This is The Aftermath by Steve Barkett. Yeah, he is star in it and the director in it. This actually made the Section 3 Video Nasties list. It also has Sid Haig in it. This is a post-apocalyptic movie, and this is actually a pretty cool movie, to be honest. I had never seen it. I had the DVD, and what we have here is post-apocalyptic world. A couple astronauts crash land on Earth after the end of the world happened, and Steve Barkett basically has to survive. He ends up teaming up with this kid and woman, and they have this enemy named Cutter who's Sid Haig, and he's a vicious son of a bitch. He kills all the men. He rapes all the women. He's just a barbarian monster. It's a Mad Max ripoff, but Steve Barkett, he has. It's funny in the commentary he talks about working on John Milius's first major film, Dillinger, and he has this kind of outlook that John Milius would have. Like I stand my ground. I'm my own person. He kind of has that mentality, and he stars and directs in the movie. And although he is a unique individual, you like his character that he's made, and his acting is enjoyable. There's a decent amount of action, especially at the end. There's a lot of crazy action. The score is wonderful. There's some cool special effects in here. There's some gore in here. There's some weird narration throughout the entire movie, and there's a pretty elaborate fight scene at the end. Super ambitious. You can't help but like the guy, and you can try. He put his heart and soul in this damn movie, and you can tell. And he does love himself, but he loves his movie, and he loves his work, and he's going to do his damnedest to make this a good one. And I think it's enjoyable. I like it. I think it's cool. I think it's unique for a post-apocalyptic movie. I think that it's genuinely trying to be dramatic, and it does have its exploitative moments, but it's not just exploitation. I think it's a good movie, and I think it's worth checking out. I like the lead. Wish that some of the goons were painted a little better. There's really only two bad guys that are recognizable in the film. There's mutants running around, so that's always cool. And you could tell the filmmakers definitely love the kind of the 50s science fiction stuff and whatnot. So because the mask and stuff remind me kind of like something that would be end up in Planet of the Apes or something like that. But it's a pretty cool movie made in the early 80s, and I would recommend checking it out for sure. There's features on here which are cool. Like I said, a commentary with Steve Barkett and his son. It's all the stuff from the Laserdisc ported over, some behind the scenes and stuff and interviews. I think it's worth checking out, and it looked really good. I know a lot of people were complaining that some of the VCI titles like Ruby didn't look great. This one I thought looked damn good, and it sounded good too, so I would give that a recommendation on The Aftermath.
That's just my luck. I managed to stay cooped up with you for over a year just for the privilege of returning home a hero. Now because of some lousy radio malfunction. Would you...
Matthews, I want you to aim us for a spot a few miles off the coast of Los Angeles. I want a lot of people to see us coming down. That way we're covered no matter what the problem is. Let's just pray that we don't hit land.
Our ship had made a trail on its re-entry that could be seen for a radius of over 200 miles. Yet no one came. No boats, no helicopters, no sightseers, no one. I found myself a prisoner, trapped on the shoreline by sheer trestles hundreds of feet high. I decided to try and climb my way out. The steep sea cliffs were impossible to scale. So I began to move parallel down the coastline in hopes of finding an easier way to the top. By midday, I came to a small beach clearing, and on it, in the distance, I thought I saw something. I was in the middle of a nightmare, with no way to wake up. Whatever had killed these people, it had done it so quickly that they had hardly been aware they were dying.
The next one here, I watched streaming. You know, I have a crummy Substance DVD, which is kind of a bootleg, so, you know, say what you want. But I watched it on streaming at Amazon Prime. It is a VHS rip. It is 3 on a Meathook. I've always wanted to see 3 on a Meathook. I was holding out for a good release. Never happened. So, yeah, this one. I believe it was made in 73. This is the same, you know, made around the same time as Deranged, which both these are based on the story of Ed Gein. This one's a little bit different. We have this mild-mannered guy who picks up these 4 girls who their car broke down, and he says, you know, why don't you come back to where I stay, and I'll help you guys out, whatnot. His father is there, their mother has passed, and his father is really unhappy about these girls coming back, and says, you know what happened last time, you can't be around women. So that sets it up that you think this guy has a mommy complex and he's gonna snap. The whole movie sets that up not very well. You know something's going on. But what happens to these 4 women is the goriest, craziest part in the whole movie. It turns into a slasher movie for about 15-20 minutes and gets really gratuitous. I thought that was kind of some gnarly stuff, and I was thinking, wow, is one of these girls going to survive? Are these the main girls? I kind of spoiled some of that, but without giving too much more away. But yeah, it turns into a slasher movie for a bit. After that, we get the story, this love story for about 30 minutes where our lead guy here is, you know, you realize he seems really gentle, seems really nice, does haunted. He falls in love with this girl, and of course they make it back to the house with the father. And, you know, they're always eating this strange meat. You know what's going on here. It's called 3 on a Meathook. It's based on Ed Gein. We all know what's going on here. The movie's far from perfect, but it has some weird entertaining moments. When he goes to this bar and they're playing Everybody's Insane or some weird song like that. That's really memorable. The opening is vastly memorable. The ending's memorable. Even the ripoff of Psycho at the end with the whole speech at the end is such a big ripoff. You roll your eyes. It's embarrassingly a ripoff, a blatant ripoff at the end, where the psychiatrist comes out and explains everything like they did in Psycho with Simon Oakley, and you're just like, are you kidding me? But is it horrible as a lot of people would say? No. It's kind of worth checking out, and it has some interesting elements. I mean, the short movie, like an hour and 17 minutes, there's at least 40 minutes of cool stuff in here. I can't really give it a hearty recommendation, but I do think it's curious, it's interesting, and if you're like the story of Ed Gein, I think it's worth checking out. It's not as good as Deranged, or The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or Silence of the Lambs, or Psycho, but those are masterpieces. Maybe not Deranged, but those other ones are masterpieces. Deranged is solid too. So, you know, I would check it out, especially if you're interested in the Ed Gein story. It's Amazon Prime, it's streaming.
A picture you won't ever forget, because it touches the full spectrum of the bizarre, the forbidden, the twilight areas of a life destined to be spent in shadow and agony. The screen may never again relate to this subject matter. It will certainly never again approach this treatment.
Oh, you know all about them, huh? You don't even know their names. Now get them out of here.
Look, Paul, why don't you just go on to bed or something? I promised to have them out of here first thing in the morning. But I'm not taking them back on that road this time of night.
Do they? I don't want to be unreasonable, but you know what happens to you when you get around women. And it must never happen again.
It ain't gonna happen, Paul. I'm gonna go fix him something to eat, and then I'll show him to the rooms.
A child's world robbed of joy by a secret conspiracy of suspicion and fear, dwelling like a lodger in the mind, insinuating its presence into every heartbeat, holding a black light to the dreams of childhood, forcing the will into blind canyons of loneliness and despair. A stolen life, pawned to a godless oblivion. The only ones left to mourn, the last witnesses to the execution, suspended in time by a puppeteer with blood on his hands. Little broken dolls that go on dancing after the music has stopped. 3 on a Meathook.
The next one here is Trouble Every Day. I watched this on Shudder. This one, years ago, I think it was early 2000s. It has Vincent Gallo in it, and it was pegged as like a French extreme film. So I was like, you know what? I'd never seen that one. You know, when those movies came out, like Inside and Martyrs and Frontiers and High Tension. Everybody was throwing everything from like Belgium or France in that extreme like new category. Even like Calvaire and Catcher, what is it? Cachet, and it's like, I don't know. So I was like, I don't know if all these fit. I watched Trouble Every Day, and I don't think it's that extreme. It has 2 or 3 moments of horrific brutality, but besides that, it's a very meandering movie. It's very morose and slow and kind of boring. Not really my thing. Man, I'm just being really negative here. At least I like The Aftermath with Steve Barquette, so I'm not being that boring, right? But we have Vincent Gallo, and he comes to France with his girlfriend, and something's wrong with him. He has these weird medical history, and he's looking for this guy and this girl. The woman is actually in Among the Living, I believe. She plays the crazy wife in the beginning of that movie, and she turns in a great performance in this movie. He's looking for this woman who's being isolated by her husband, who's a doctor. You don't know why she's isolated, but you get the fact that she has some sort of strange disease. It's sexual, it's violent, and it's a violent sexual disease. And Vincent Gallo's not right either. He seems to disengage from his wife, and at first you think he might have brain cancer. He's dying. Something's wrong with him for sure. And as the movie goes on, these two people, Vincent Gallo and the woman who's locked up, get closer and closer. But there's a couple great scenes in here. One with the criminal who breaks into the house, and it's a really gratuitous, nasty sex scene, and a really kind of haunting moment what Vincent Gallo does at the end with kind of, you realize what kind is going on. Those moments are pretty great, pretty strong. And it does play kind of like an art film, but I don't know if any of the shots are good enough to be considered an art film. And you got to remember, watch this on Shudder, and usually Shudder stuff looks good. This didn't look particularly great. I don't think it was HD on there, and I'm not sure if this was shot on digital around the time it could be, so it might just be kind of lost into that phase. If anybody's seen an HD print of this, I would really like to. I think it would possibly look much more beautiful. Very white-looking movie, washed out kind of. I'm not the hugest fan of it. I think it's solid. I think it's average, and I think it's actually probably a below average movie with 2 amazing scenes that put it above or at average. I'd really like to see this one again. Maybe I'll pick up some more things, but I think it's worth checking out, and I think that I need to see it again and maybe discuss with somebody who enjoys the movie, try to talk me into it one way or another. But Trouble Every Day, I think it's worth checking out, especially if you like French films, but don't think you're getting another Inside or Martyrs, because those movies are one of a kind.
Mr. and Mrs. Brown.
Welcome to Paris, Mrs. Brown. I hope you'll enjoy your stay.
No, Dr. Semino doesn't work here anymore.
Look into my eyes. I really need to find him. You see trouble every day.
He just up and left.
His wife is sick.
Corey's sick?
Yes, very sick.
You can blow such a slightest breeze. And I know
you were in love with her? It's not the right word for it.
And this trip, if this trip, if this trip,
Do you believe in loyalty, Mr. Brown? What about betrayal? I would never hurt you.
Hey guys, for the guest review, we're going to check out Time After Time. This has Malcolm McDowell and David Warner in it. And the female actress was very familiar. I had to look her up, and the only thing I had seen her in was Back to the Future Part 3, where she's Christopher Lloyd's wife. And for some reason, I've only seen that a couple times years ago on TV, and she was very memorable. The story of Time After Time always interests me. It's got a great concept. It follows the famous author H.G. Wells, who wrote, Food of the Gods, The Time Machine, of course, and a slew of other titles. Basically, back in his time, he's friends with Jack the Ripper unknowingly. Jack the Ripper uses his time machine, which he actually created, to escape into the future. So H.G. Wells jumps into his time machine. It's strange. It's convoluted as hell how it works, but he ends up chasing him through time in modern-day New York. So we have a fish-out-of-water situation. Sounds great, right? Great concept.
Modern-day San Francisco.
Modern-day San Francisco. So this is it's an amazing concept, and what I was hoping was it was going to be. Maybe I should have done my research, but the concept to me was. Is H.G. Wells going to chase Jack the Ripper, played by David Warner, through time? Are we going to see them in the future? Are we going to see them running by dinosaurs? All sorts of nonsense. We could have gone science fiction world. We could have gone prehistoric world. We could have done World War II. But instead of getting World War I, instead of getting World War II, we get this weird, outdated Technicolor stuff and a bunch of sound bites from the news. It's a cute movie. It's nearly 2 hours, and most of it is a love story. It's nice to see Malcolm McDowell. During this time, Malcolm McDowell was in a lot of those, he was in the Lindsay Anderson movies, which I'm not too familiar with, but they were kind of crazy. He was also in Caligula, A Clockwork Orange. So he was kind of had an extreme run there, and he was in a lot of weird stuff. So it was nice to see him get to play a lighthearted H.G. Wells, and there's a lot of fun to be had, except that it's mostly just a romantic comedy. Which is weird. With such a great concept, it shouldn't be wasted on just a run-of-the-mill romantic comedy. And the fish out of the water stuff goes on for way too long, and it's really repetitive.
Yeah, it's really wasted potential. Like when because I heard about it for years. I always wanted to watch it, and I literally thought that it was H.G. Wells chasing Jack the Ripper through time. Like, oh, we're in King Arthur time, and like, oh, we're in like World War II, or like I thought that'd be really freaking cool.
It would be like Waxwork 2, Lost in Time.
Yeah, and no, it was literally like, I've never seen the Thor movie, the first Thor movie, but people always describe it as a romantic comedy, and like in watching this, I'm like, this is probably what the Thor movie's like. A fish out of water in a romantic comedy that goes on for 2 hours.
Wonder Woman was a fish out of water, and it was fun, and it was also a romantic comedy, but it was in World War I. It was a World War I ragtag team buddy man on a mission movie romantic comedy. Fish out of water. So I enjoyed that. This is not a bad movie. Don't get me wrong.
No.
It's our fault for not paying a damn attention to what it was. As you said when we saw Red Dawn, you said this is like a Republican's wet dream.
Yeah.
Time After Time is a Democrat's wet dream. It's hilarious in the fact that we have this thing going on where H.G. Wells is a big socialist. He's like pushing women's rights and everything. And back when he was from, it's unheard of. So he's talking about in the future there'll be a utopian socialist society that is anti-violent. And this is probably the best concept in the whole movie, because when he goes in the future, he realizes actually it might not be a Democrat's wet dream. It might be the crushing of a Democrat's wet dream. So, because when H.G. Wells goes into the future, Jack the Ripper, David Warner loves it because there's violence everywhere. He can get away with murder, literally. And, he was... So it's great to see David Warner in the movie. And he's not in the same movie here. He's not in the same movie. The murders are fairly graphic for what they are. And it's kind of surprising because this is really lighthearted and PG, I believe it should be.
Right, it kind of has tone problems. Yeah, because it's I don't know, what did you call it, slapstick at some points? Like, the way, Malcolm McDowell runs, he like, flails around, and I'd say, 30% of the movie is just Malcolm McDowell kind of running around from point A to point B, and then it cuts to David Warner, who's just slicing people up, and it's not too gory, it's it's not like...
But it's bloody enough.
It's bloody. It's a very bloody movie whenever he does anything.
He has this little pocket watch, David Warner, that he plays a song every time he kills somebody, and it reminds me of, what's the guy's name from For a Few Dollars More? Every time he's about to have a duel, he pulls it out and it plays, and that is beautiful in that movie. It works really well in this one. There's some really great things about this movie, and there's some really not so great things about this movie. And it's more so what I wanted out of it. So I don't want to say that's like a misleading trailer, because I didn't watch the trailer, so I don't want to say that. But it's just, I think it's very wasted potential. The Blu-ray looks great. It's from Warner Archive. It's a press disc. It looks damn good. It sounds damn good. If you like the movie, I'd really recommend it. Or I would just recommend watching The Time Machine from the 60s, the H.G. Wells adaptation instead. And Time Bandits with David Warner as well.
And
take Time Machine and that, and like Scrooge for your romantic comedy, because it's on that caliber. The Lady Mary, whatever her name is, she reminds me of somebody that Bill Murray would fall in love with in the movie.
Yeah, she's definitely a Bill Murray girlfriend. There's a lot of MacGuffins in this movie. They always point to various aspects of the time machine, and the time machine has 3 different things to it. There's a key, a crystal, and something else, and none of it ever really makes any sense. They go over very briefly in the beginning, and then...
It's like Masked Universe. They just have the key.
Yeah.
The cosmic key, that's it. There's no other MacGuffins. This one's we got the key, we got the crystal, we got the time machine, we got the newspaper. It's
and it's the cop was really good.
He was great, underutilized.
Yeah, underutilized.
Really, this is a cast of 3. I think this movie could have benefited majorly if you throw some character actors in it. Just imagine if L.Q. Jones or somebody like that, just random, anybody, Jim Broadbent, anybody popped up in the frickin' movie. It feels like there was a Hammer director, 2 editors, one doing a romantic comedy, and then some Hammer horror guy coming in that wanted to push the boundaries and add gore and all the Hammer movies, and they're that's too far. He's editing his stuff, at one point there's a severed hand in there, and I know it's not I'm hyping up. Somebody's gonna think they're getting into something blood-sucking freaks. It's not anything tremendously gory. It's just totally weird.
Yeah. What did I say? Oh, I think that Alan Rickman based his whole acting career acting off of David Warner.
I love David Warner. David Warner is I know these guys were probably after his career, but it's Alan Rickman meets Donald Sutherland, and you get David Warner. Right. And I love all 3 of those guys. They're all tremendous. They all feel like each other a little bit. And I've always really loved Donald Sutherland and David Warner growing up. They're 2 of my favorites. But I would say check the movie out. I would give it 6 out of 10. Which is above average because conceptually it's great, and it's got 2 good performances by 2 actors I enjoy watching, and the lead actress is good as well. But it's also funny because she's this big feminist at the time, so it's he's for feminist and stuff, and then he goes in time, and it's this is almost too much. But they do some silly shit where he eats at McDonald's, and he's I ate at a Scottish restaurant for breakfast.
McDougal's.
Yeah, it still doesn't top the Coming to America where John Amos has a McDonald's ripoff, and he's always worried about getting sued. So when somebody's McDonald's, it's McDonald's. I think that's the name of it. But that part always put me in tears. But time after time, I would give it a slight recommendation.
Yeah, I kind of wish I had watched it when I was younger.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I think I probably would enjoy it more. I did enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. It's just I think that it's a maybe hour 20-minute story at most, given what it is, and that I feel like the runtime's a bit too long for
hour and 52 minutes.
Yeah, barely anything happening in it, and like before we started the video, I said that I was talking about it at work, and my coworker's like, "Isn't that a TV show?" And I'm like, "I don't know if this is like a movie." And so she looked it up real quick. She was like, "Oh yeah, there's a TV show made last year. It only lasted one season, did terribly."
Was it actually the same story?
Yes, same story, and it actually stated that it was based off the movie. So I'm curious. I'm not going to watch a TV show.
I wonder who plays Jack the Ripper.
I don't know. I didn't actually look that.
I wonder who plays H.G. Wells.
It looked like just two guys. Just two guys.
All right. It's probably like a British show.
It might be. Yeah, she's only lasted one season. She only watched one episode. She didn't like it. So I'm curious to see if it's in the same vein or if they actually expanded upon it like I think that they should have, where they actually do chase each other through time.
A scientific genius named H.G. Wells stalks a criminal genius named Jack the Ripper across the time itself and the most ingenious thriller of our time. Across one time!
One time, just one time.
And a bunch of colors, vibrant colors and sound bites.
And like, all this shit keeps happening, and like, well, we're kind of too late. We're kind of too late.
You got a time machine.
You got a time machine. Just go back in time and kill him. Like seriously, all I would do is like, well, time machine's here. I'm just gonna go back 20 minutes before the introduction of the movie and stop Jack the Ripper, and
call it a day.
You're done. But then I don't know how time works.
I'm good on this one. You?
I'm good.
What would you give it?
5 out of 10. Average movie. It's good. Just watch it. Maybe if you want.
The time is 1893, and novelist and inventor H.G. Wells invites you to join him on a flight from London to San Francisco. In under a minute, you will be transported to a bizarre and fantastic new age. Today, time after time. For H.G. Wells, the modern world offers a spectacular array of revelations, embarrassments, and delights.
Well, hello there.
Hello.
What's up, Doc?
I beg your pardon?
You were saying? Where to?
Could you please take me as quickly as possible to the Hyatt?
But Wells has not come here as a tourist. His visit will be somewhat more dangerous. For he is pursuing Jack the Ripper, a villain who has eluded his fate by escaping into time.
90 years ago, I was a freak. Today, I'm an amateur.
I'm obliged to take you back to face the consequences of your acts.
You take me back. How do you propose to do that? By force?
Be reasonable, John. We don't belong here.
A 19th century gentleman.
What?
You don't close your eyes.
And a 20th century woman.
Well, neither do you.
Join forces to capture a criminal from the past. At large, in the modern world. But even more than they want him, he needs them.
You throw me the key, and I'll release the girl.
On your honor, John.
You have my word as a gentleman. I would have expected that you'd notice by now that I am not a gentleman. Say goodbye.
Goodbye, Herbert.
You haven't instructed him in the use of one of these machines, have you?
HG, it's checkmate, and you've lost again.
A romantic adventure, a breathless chase, around the world and across a century. Time after time.
All right, the next one here was the pick a movie, and it was by John Wilhelm. And John Wilhelm was kind to me. He picked actually one of my favorite movies. This is not. I think it's known, but I don't think it's very popular. It's known because it's a sequel to one of the bigger horror movies of all time, and the original is a vastly popular movie. But this is a sequel to Return of the Living Dead. This is Return of the Living Dead Part 2. This is a bootleg Blu-ray. That is an HD print with the proper soundtrack, and it has all the special features of the DVD on there as well. And it has the original Lorimar opening. So it's a freaking awesome bootleg release. It's in HD with the proper score. It's never been done anywhere. You can get it on Vudu in HD, but it doesn't have the proper score because when they re-released the DVD in America, when they released it, they took out the score and put some Casio keyboard bullshit on there. So I don't watch the DVD. But saying that, Return of the Living Dead Part 2 is the sequel to Return of the Living Dead, one of the best zombie movies ever. If it weren't for George Romero, obviously this movie, Return of the Living Dead, wouldn't exist. But take Romero out of the equation, I think Return of the Living Dead is the best zombie movie, followed by Fulci's Zombie. So, Return of the Living Dead Part 2 had a lot to live up to. I think as a kid, I actually saw Part 2 first. The cover art to me was always a very memorable one with the cloud coming up from the thing. I love it with the face in the cloud. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. I'm glad, like I said, John Wilhelm picked it. Yeah, Return of the Living Dead Part 2. We follow the story of, again, the tracks in 246? I think it's 246. Falls out of the back of an army truck while a guy is jamming out to a song that always gets stuck in my head. Go, rag, go, rag, go, rag. And he's like, that's what I realized when I put the DVD in that it wasn't, because I was going to jam with the guy and then it wasn't the same song. So I was like, nope, took that DVD out and was very mad. But it falls into this lake or this creek, and it goes down and ends up in this new like housing development. And of course these kids find it, they screw with it, it gets into the cemetery, zombies come. The house is, this whole city is, quarantined, and it's up to a bunch of survivors to try to make it. What's cool about this is James Karen and Tom Matthews come back, and they play similar characters, almost like they had been there before. They even play a joke on it. And the kid from The Blob is in it as well. And the guy who plays Doc Mandel is in a bunch of stuff. Dana Ashbrook is his name? What is that guy's name? He's in a bunch of stuff as well. He's in Girlfriend from Hell, Waxwork, Sundown Vampire and Retreat. And the guy who plays Doc Mandel steals the show.
Yeah, the doctor, right?
Yeah, he played. He played Jerry Seinfeld's father in the pilot episode of Seinfeld, but they replaced him later. I think the replacement was good, but this guy's amazing in it. This movie's stupid compared to the first one. It's not as serious. It's sillier. It's actually really a kid's movie with blood.
Yeah,
and some language.
I had only seen 1 and 3 before. I'd never seen Part 2 before, so it does feel it's different. But it's similar. I mean, it is more or less like a direct sequel to the first one.
It's cheesy. It's essentially a remake of the first one with kids in it and without nudity and without the punk rock edge that makes the first one so memorable and iconic. And it doesn't have as strong a characters. Like, I mean, Clu Gulager in the original Return of the Living Dead and Don Kaffa, along with James Karen and Tom Matthews and Leanna Quigley, are so brilliant, so great. Everybody in that movie, every character. This one has fun characters, and its only crime is it cannot live up to the first movie. I will say that. It's fun, it's stupid. It doesn't have the horror elements as much as the first one, but it has a lot of great atmosphere. To be honest, I like the cemetery. The zombies look a little cheap in HD, but I don't care. There's a lot of silly gags. The one zombie gets blown in half, and they actually use an amputee. They have to, the way it is. So there's nasty little bits of gore. There's a lot of funny moments. This movie actually inspired me a lot more than I realized. It had a huge influence on me, and I didn't notice. Like, until I went to go make Slimy Little Bastards, and I'm like, man, rewatching this, I was like, I'm not Slimy Little Bastards, Halloween Spookies. And my segment I was like, there's seeds, like this humor. The humor in Return of the Living Dead Part 2, that kiddish, stupid humor, is in Halloween Spookies. Like, at the end, no more brains. All right, and then the guy says, you win for now. I stole that, and I knew it was from that movie when I did it. I took that as like, back to hell for now.
That's
I did from
exactly
Halloween
it,
Spookies at the end. That was inspired by Return of the Living Dead, or lifted, basically. But it's zany, it's silly, and I like the idea that a kid is the lead in it. In the fighting the zombies, because it makes it scary, and I saw it as a kid, so it really instantly relate to it.
Yeah, I mean it's good. I like it. The characters are pretty logical. Let me think.
I'm not cutting it.
I know. Why don't you ever cut it? Oh, the hospital scene. I like the stuff that takes place at the hospital.
Home to the hospital.
Yes.
Who's the president? Harry S. Truman. Which a lot of people get annoyed by that joke because it's a reused joke from the first one. Like, people would be critical of Airplane or Austin Powers 2 for reusing the same jokes, but every once in a while you can get away with it.
Don't they, they harken back in the first movie.
Oh, the Colonel's in here. Colonel Glover comes back, too.
Yeah, the Colonel's in it, but isn't at the hospital, like, doesn't somebody, like, pick up, like... You know, in the first movie, there's a scene where, like, the zombie goes into the ambulance, he's like, send more cops, or send more paramedics.
Yeah, that's what I just was saying, when he says, come to the hospital.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the reused joke, I just said.
Right.
Yeah, and he says, who's the president? Harry S. Truman.
Did he say that in the first one, too?
No. Oh. That's send more cops, send more paramedics.
Got it.
Yeah, but it's the same joke. I love Doc Mandel when they take his car. It's a brand new car, and the garage door won't open, and they're trying to get it open. All these zombies are coming in, and he's like, the one guy speeds right through the garage, and he says, I had this car for 30 years, never got a scratch on it. I love that. And he's always trying to get drunk.
Yeah, in the power plant when he, like, finds the bottle, and he's, like, deliberating, like, he has to help his friends who are out there trying to do the stuff, and he's like, hit the button, but there's that bottle of rum right there. Oh,
you know what's messed up? Night, Dawn, and Day are my favorite horror movie trilogy. My next favorite horror movie trilogy is Return of the Living Dead 1, 2, and 3. I love all three. Honestly, it's a guilty pleasure. I love the movie. I know it's not great. I wouldn't even call it a guilty pleasure. I would say it's fun. Mm-hmm. And if you saw it as an adult, you may not love it. But I saw it young. I always rented it. It had the same kind of wet, rainy feeling to me. And we had a housing development be built around us when I was young. So it felt like real. It felt like it could happen to me. It just felt like it could realistically happen when you're a kid. Although I know now it's complete bullshit. But I just love it. They have some really fun effects, animatronics, and there's one lady who's like, get this damn screwdriver out of the head. I love that, all that kind of stuff. And the Monster Mash cover at the end is lovely. Again, think of it.
Right.
I had the Creature Crunch in Halloween Spookies. That's how much I loved Return of the Living Dead Part 2. I adore this movie, to be honest, and I know it's not perfect. That's why I'm giving it a 9 out of 10.
I'd give it a 7 out of 10.
See, and that's the first watch. What's the problems with it, you think?
I don't think if there's any real problems aside for the fact that I just really like the first Return of the Living Dead.
The first one's a 10 out of 10.
It's a 10 out of 10, and it's top 5 movies in my list, maybe.
Mine too. Top 5 favorites of all time.
In its genre, for sure.
Oh yeah, like I said, if it weren't for Romero, it's the best zombie movie.
I still like Fulci Zombie better
than Return of the Living Dead.
I think I do. Maybe I don't.
I don't know. It's Romero's 3, Return of the Living Dead, then Fulci Zombie, then probably.
I only like 2 of Romero's 3, but we won't go into that. I mean, Dawn's okay.
Shut up, Dawn's a masterpiece. They're all masterpieces.
It's boring. We won't go into that.
We're done. We're talking about Return of the Living Dead 2 before I kill you. All right.
He's editing this one out.
No, it's not. But I love Return of the Living Dead Part 2. I'd really like to see a stateside Blu-ray or an overseas Blu-ray with the proper soundtrack. Anybody that has the DVD, remember that soundtrack's not right. It's crummy. It's uninspired. It's not good. I'm sorry whoever made it. It's not your fault. It's just I heard this soundtrack a million times like that. Now, original soundtrack's pretty solid. It's a good soundtrack. Not as good as the first Return of the Living Dead, but is it good enough.
They couldn't get the rights to the songs?
I don't know. They just released it on DVD. Maybe they were just like, we don't even want to bother. It's a Warner Brothers, which is unfortunate because now we got 1, which was an MGM, and we have 3, which was a Lionsgate, or it was a Trimark, but Lionsgate put it out, and 2, Warner Brothers. Warner Archive, please, please, please. You've been doing such brilliant, lovely work. You're putting out Leatherface, which is great, and you put out so much cool stuff on Blu-ray. I'm really grateful, but Return of the Living Dead 2 would be amazing.
A deadly experiment. A freak accident. A secret that will be carried to the grave as the horror classic is reborn. Return of the Living Dead, Part 2. Jesse will be the first to know. Billy will be the first to go.
We've got to get out of here. Get to a phone.
7 of the living against an army of the dead, starved for life. Return of the Living Dead, Part 2. Just when you thought it was safe to be dead.
Okay, now it's time for the Pick a Movie drawing. Again, thank you, John Wilhelm. Matt Godfrey, he picked the next one. The next one will be Be My Cat, a film for Anne, or something around that. I awarded it. It's in the update, so that's the one he picked. Let's see who wants to get in the Pick a Movie this time. If you ever want to enter a Pick a Movie, the Pick a Movie for me to review, all you got to do is leave a comment at the Screaming Toilet Facebook page. Ask a question while you're there. Just say, I want to be entered in the Pick a Movie, and you'll get the Pick a Movie for me to review if I haven't done it in the last 38 weeks. Who's it going to be this time? We got Dan D. Pick something good, Danny boy. Old Danny boy. I hope that showed up. If not, just take my word for it. What do we got? Time for the update. Hop right into the Blu-rays. We got Black Magic Rites from Redemption. Not seen this. I think it's Spanish. We got the Pete Walker Collection Volume 1 on Blu-ray. What do we got here? We got House of Whipcord, The Comeback, Schizo, Die Screaming, Marianne. And we got the Pete Walker Collection Volume 2, Flesh and Blood Show, Frightmare, House of Mortal Sin, Home Before Midnight, The Big Switch, Man of Violence, bonus Blu-ray disc. So yeah, I'm going to get in some Pete Walker movies. We got Virus, the Scream Factory one. Never seen this. I remember seeing the toys around. Kind of interested. Confessions of Murder, Welgo, a Korean. South Korean. We got Bedevilled. I saw this on Shudder. Had the DVD. After I watched it, I had to have the Blu-ray because it was freaking great. The Man from Nowhere, same story. Saw it on Shudder. Had the DVD. Had to have the Blu-ray because it was great. We have Let the Right One In on Blu-ray. I didn't have the Blu-ray. I had the DVD. And I was like, you know what? That movie's so good. I want to rewatch it. Might as well see it in HD. We got Gothic from the Lionsgate line. What do they call these? The Vestrons. And I am the future. I'm singing Class 84's music. But what's it? Come the day I will be there when... That's the song in this one. Class of 99. Vestron video. Love this movie. I adore The Class of 1999 by Mark Lester. Totally underrated director, by the way. But we got Patrick Kilpatrick, Pam Grier, John P. Ryan, Stacy Keach, Malcolm McDowell, Joshua Miller, Bradley Gregg, Tracy Lynn. It's just got a beautiful, amazing, lovely cast. Robot teachers, killing kids, post-apocalyptic future world. Was a favorite as a kid. Still a favorite. We got Drifter. This looked interesting. Fair game, finally. Excited to see this. We got Don't Breathe. I got this cheap, well, free. Deadpool. And Big Lebowski, which is a classic. Didn't have the Blu-ray. We got this crazy Blu-ray set. These are the German titles, so below, look in there. But yeah, these are all Antonio Marianne movies. This is an Italian Blu-ray set. I have seen one of these movies. It is... What is the one? I reviewed it a little bit ago. It was one of Antonio Marianne's Vietnam movies. Geez, Tornado. Yeah, but there's 6 in here. The titles will be below because I don't know the translations off the top of my head. But these movies have a bunch of people in them. They all are spoken in English, which is great. I don't know how the prints look. They all say they're in 1080, and they're all in 16:9. So hopefully they're all right. Hopefully they look better than the Amazon prints. And then we have a DVD, of course, Be My Cat, a film for Anne, which is what I'll be reviewing for the Pick a Movie next week. But oh, geez, sorry guys, I forgot my Q&A. I guess that's going at the end. Nick, please list your top 3 Stephen King adaptations and your top 3 werewolf movies. What genre haven't you had a chance to do as an actor but would like to? My top 3 Stephen King adaptations off the top of my head were going to have to be Christine, Graveyard Shift, and Dead Zone or Shining. Can't pick. Top 3 werewolf movies. American Werewolf in London. Can't beat that. Dog Soldiers. Off the top of my head. Man, it's been so many years since I've seen The Howling. It's just really hard. I'd have to think about Silver Bullet. I remember that one fairly well. What genre haven't you had a chance to do as an actor but would like to very much? Western. I want to learn. I'm going to have to learn how to ride a horse, though. Love to do a Western before I die. It's probably the only genre I really want to do before I die. What film, Dan D, what film do you think you own the most released copies of? You know, that's a hard thing to say because I tend to, if I upgrade and all the features have been ported over, I put the disc away. So I really don't know. I don't collect like one movie, but I do have like 3 releases of Last House on Dead End Street, maybe 4. Do you collect horror soundtracks on vinyl? I do not. Do not collect any vinyl. Christopher Delier, what are your favorite Grindhouse movies? What are your favorite guilty pleasure films? Guilty pleasure film, I like Armageddon. Grew up watching it. I know. Come on. Don't want to close back. Come on. I liked it. It's just, I don't know. It has a good cast in there. At least some of the names I like. Like, Will Patton has a good role. Steve Buscemi. Come on. Michael Clark Duncan. What do you want? And favorite Grindhouse movies. I really like the cannibal movies. Anything with cannibals or zombies from that time. Or the rape revenge movies like I Spit on Your Grave. Any of that stuff I enjoy. Any exploitation movies, so I guess any Grindhouse movies would fit into that. What James Grimmer, what's your favorite Sergio Martino movie? Mountain of the Cannibal God and Big Alligator River. John Wilhelm, if you could recast the Magnificent Seven with actors from any generation, would you? If so, who would they be? Okay, I actually wrote down some names. This is just a random 7 that I'm going to throw in there from different generations. Telly Savalas, Lee Marvin, Ernest Borgnine, Warren Oates, Kurt Russell, Ben Johnson, Michael Rooker. We got 2 guys from Tombstone. We got 3 guys from the Dirty Dozen. And then we got 3 guys from the Wild Bunch in there as well. So a couple crossovers. So I think that is a good dirty Magnificent 7 right there. Mike, are modern horror movies, let's say post-2000, that bad, or am I just old? There was a time frame where there were some really crappy horror movies, and only the good stuff was independent. And pretty much only horror movies worth a damn were all independent. I don't know when that time frame is. I would say like 96 to like 2002. It was so bad. I don't remember anything good unless it was independent coming out. There's probably a couple I'm missing, you know. But yeah, and I do think they've gotten better in the last 5 years. I think that we got some like indie treasures, but also on that point, it's hard. Like, when you're living in it, are these movies going to stand the test of time? The market's so oversaturated with movies now, or even the good ones, or the ones that deserve to be masterpieces even going to be remembered? Are nostalgists, or nostalgic, that's a tough word, are they just going to shoot down anything that's new, even if it's a masterpiece? Like, just because it's not what they grew up with. It's so hard to tell, you know? Because I love the old movies, and when I see new movies, I don't have the same fondness of them. I just can't. It's impossible. I like how old movies look myself. So I understand where you're coming from. I really do. Like, I'll watch something like The Aftermath and enjoy it. And it's just, it's a 3 out of 5 star movie. But then I'll see The Witch, and it's a masterpiece. It's like a 5 out of, it's like, this is a great movie. Or something like It Comes at Night, man. This is a well-made, damn great movie that's making me evoke feelings. But I'll go back and I'll rewatch, Dead Alive for 100 times. It's so weird. It's so hard to determine quality versus nostalgia versus, the right place at the right time, and what will live up to what it was. It's a tough question. Hopefully I answered it. Probably not. But thank you very much, guys, for everything. And you guys have a good one, as always.